6 schools and colleges within them offering variety of courses in business, healthcare, computer science, sustainability and justice, science, law, fine arts, and more. Thank you so much, everybody, to be here with us. It's truly an honor. I would like to request our Vice Chancellor, Professor C. Rajkumar, to address our guests. Thank you.
Sorry. Very good morning to all of you. It is indeed my proud privilege to welcome our distinguished friends from Pace University in New York. I know several of you may be already aware of Pace University, but it's one of the most global universities in the US, but also around the world. I want to particularly extend a warm welcome to my very dear friend, Professor Marvin Krislov, the president of Pace University, also his distinguished faculty colleagues representing different schools as deans, also departments, and also the senior leadership and management of the Pace University. We've had different forms of collaborations with Pace University, some form of collaboration with the law school and their business school, but the goal of this visit is to expand and deepen the relationship between Pace University and OP Jindal Global University. I want to take this moment to recognize the importance of higher education and universities. First of all, I do strongly believe that United States and India has a very important role in advancing the cause of higher education, largely because of the fact that we are democracies, deeply embedded in values relating to pluralism, inclusivity, as well as deeply committed to democratic culture. We are also societies which have valued freedoms, not just the individual freedom of speech and expression, but also the role of institutions that are involved in protecting those freedoms and advancing civil liberties, be it the media, be it the institutions such as the Supreme Court, and we have so many similarities between both our countries. The third aspect of both our countries is we are both diverse societies. We are deeply committed to pluralism. Our societies are very diverse, and that's another unique characteristics of both our countries. I also want to say that both United States and India has always had a very strong commitment towards education and have recognized that education has the transformative potential for impacting society. And that commitment towards education has resulted in United States becoming a global powerhouse for some of the world's finest institutions. And unlike many parts of the world, United States has a large number of fine institutions, and it has also democratized excellence with a view to providing opportunities and access for a large number of people, and not necessarily excellence being concentrated on a very few set of institutions. And India has also done that in the last 75 years of Indian independence. I also want to mention that we've had a very close relationship between both our countries. Increasingly, we are strategic partners. But I must say that what governments do between them with regard to building strategic ties, including ties related to trade and investment and military and other forms of strategic and diplomatic ties, is only one part of the story. The most exciting part of the story is what we in academic institutions are doing and how we can shape the future of the relationship between both our countries. As you know, we are 15 years old. I just returned from a grueling trip to the United States where I was in 6 cities visiting 10 of our university partners and delivering lectures with a colleague who is a leader in Indian bar, who delivered those lectures, but we hosted them. And in each of those cities, we were seeing our alumni. And I was so proud to see our alumni doing so well. And they are, of course, part of all these institutions where we have collaborations. So I want to say that this conversation, this visit of Pace University, I believe augurs well for the future of India-US relationship, and also the relationship that we are building between OP Jindal Global University and Pace University. We are also at a very unique time in the history of the world too, and these are difficult times when we have the responsibility to speak truth to power, but also to recognize the challenges that we are facing in the world. Not so long ago, we are facing the crisis in Ukraine, including the situation relating to Russia, but more recently, we are also facing the crisis in Israel and Palestine. And I want to bring home the larger point that in these circumstances, universities have a very important role to play. And the first and most important role that a university can play is to be committed to truth, but more importantly, to be able to have the willingness and sagacity to accept multiple views and perspectives, to be able to appreciate complexity and to help develop nuanced views and perspectives that is not necessarily out in the public domain. This particular aspect of what universities ought to foster is something that both PACE and Jindal, but also other liberal progressive universities around the world are deeply committed to. And I must say that these are not easy times for those values that we need to once again recommit ourselves to. In India too, we have our own set of issues, and we need to recognize that our ability to create opportunities for our students to think freely, for our faculty to be engaged in these issues, also comes with a higher degree of responsibility when it comes to sharing these views and perspectives. We cannot accept any form of intolerance in these discussions. We need to promote a public intellectual discourse, which is also based upon recognizing complexity and accepting nuanced views and perspectives, especially when we are indeed dealing and living in a more complex world. With those words, I want to once again extend a warm welcome to my very dear friend, President Marvin Krislov, as well as his outstanding group of colleagues, deans, and other faculty members. I hope that this talk will generate discussions, and you will raise questions, and we will also have opportunities to build collaborations. At our end, we are doing very many things so that several of you are able to pursue your graduate degree programs at Pace University. I have visited the university. It's in New York. They have a wonderful campus just outside New York, but also they have a campus in New York. We are already working on study abroad programs, immersion programs, exchange programs across different schools. And I can only hope that in beginning summer 2024, the first cohort of Jindal students will be in New York at Pace University, while we'll be also looking at many other forms of collaborations, including faculty exchange, student exchange, joint teaching, joint research, joint conferences, dual degree programs, and immersion programs between both our institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rauch, for your encouraging words. We have it here Professor Marvin Krislov, President, Pace University. Professor Krislov is currently serving as the 8th president of Pace University. He's deeply committed in providing all students, regardless of their economic background, access to informative education. And under his leadership, PACE is also developing new interdisciplinary programs, and their aim is to deliver this experiential teaching to as many students as possible that would benefit from it. It's Professor Krislov's personal commitment to initiatives supporting student mental health and well-being. It's an issue that is deeply dear to him, and it's his aim that to ensure that all students are catered to this, and the university helps these students, and it is made an advancing priority, and it includes diversity, equality, inclusion, and belonging for the students. With this, I would like to invite Professor Marvin Krislov to share a few words with us and the students. Thank you so much.
All right, do we have the PowerPoint? Thank you, Professor Kumar. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to cross the line and ask you a couple questions to get you talking. Would that be okay? Will you feel comfortable answering some questions? Yes? Can you say it a little more affirmatively? Yes. All right. We're all in this together, including those of you who have PDAs, which I would not mind you putting away unless you want to snap a picture of me. But let's talk about you. What are you studying here? Law? All of you? Liberal arts? How many of you are undergraduates? Okay, so you're undergrads in law. And what about this side of the room? What are you studying? International relations as undergraduates, correct? Graduate students, okay. What about you in the front row? What are you studying? International relations. So this is law and this is international relations?
There are some liberal arts students as well.
Okay, all right. Why the divide between the law students and the international relations students?
I just turned up before.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if this was an ideological divide or something that we should be concerned about. Okay, because Raj and I were talking about the ability to have discourse earlier, and that includes not only political discourse, but discourse across disciplines. And I hope that in your education here, you are getting that, and certainly if you were to join us, I would hope that you would have that. Anyway, so this is me. We are in New York. We're happy to be here. We're very pleased to have our great partnership with OP Jindal Global University, and as Professor Kumar said, we're working on collaborations for student exchanges, faculty exchanges, joint conferences, collaborative faculty. What my topic today is to talk with you about higher education, and so this talk is really about you. This talk is about every one of you because you are a consumer of higher education, and you have an opportunity today to share with us, not just me, but my colleagues, your thoughts about higher education. And one of the things that I think is so exciting, as Professor Kumar said, is that we are at a very pivotal moment in higher education. Some people are questioning whether higher education is worth it. How many of you think higher education is worth it? How many of you in the room think higher education is worth it? The time and the money that you and your families are investing. How many of you are not sure whether higher education is worth it? Because I didn't see 100% of the hands. So how many of you, I know this is a little awkward because these are your faculty sitting around you. How many of you aren't sure that this is the right thing to be doing? Anybody? Okay, a few of you. How many of you would tell your brothers and sisters that they should go to higher education if they had the opportunity? Anybody who would say, I'm not sure that this is such a good thing for you? Yeah, a few of you. Okay, why? Why would you say that? I know I put you on the spot. Too much time, too much money, not sure of its relevance. Something like that? Something like that. Anybody else? Anybody else who's not sure? I know, this is so embarrassing. You are brave. Let's give him a big round of applause. Is this totally different? Is this okay to do this, Professor Kumar? Okay, all right. All right, so no one's getting graded. Are you getting grades on this? No. Are you getting extra credit for showing up? No, you aren't? Professor Kumar, let's work on that. Extra credit, okay? Okay, extra credit. See, this lecture has already helped your life.
You
Yes.
think just because I call them or you speak, they'll turn up for free? Of course they're getting attendance.
Okay, excellent. So being here at this lecture today has already improved your life. Not only have you seen me make a fool of myself, but you've actually gotten extra credit. Okay, all right. Let's go to the next slide. So what's happening in the United States? And I'd be interested in your perspective on whether this is the same thing as in India. I think there's some very dramatic differences. So what's happening in the United States is that there are fewer people of your age range, particularly in certain parts of the country, including the Northeast. What's the situation in India? Fewer or more 18 to 22 years? Right, big difference, right? Big difference. And that has dramatic implications for, you're my friend in the front row. What does this mean, the fact that there are more people in your age range in India than proportionately in the United States. What does that mean?
That we have more scope to grow and a larger working population which can contribute to the economy as well as a lot of other things.
Right. The future is yours in a way. The United States, in some way, could be seen as having very unfavorable demographics. People older than I am who are heading toward retirement, whereas you've got all these young people who are entering your prime working years. So this is a very favorable difference for India. What else? We just talked, my friend in the penultimate row just shared with me something that is being said in the United States anyway, which is a lot of debates about the value of college. I haven't gotten a sense of whether your demographic in India feels the same way. Yes, no? Yes, please. Exactly. Okay, did everybody hear what this gentleman said? Yes? No? Yes? Do you want to say it once again slightly louder? But it was great. It was great. Yeah. Yeah, just, yeah. Don't scream,
So
but
what I was saying is that there's a lot of value in India that a lot of people want to go to college, but the infrastructure to support the necessity is not there. So, but in the US, there's a dying breed of people who want to go to college, but you have a lot of universities, as Professor pointed out. There's a lot of fine universities in the US, but not many people want to go.
right. I mean, there are plenty of people who want to go, particularly to some of the more popular universities, but there also are universities, particularly in certain parts of the country, that are less well populated, that are older population, so there are fewer young people. India, you've got this young population bursting with energy, wanting to go to college. And so places like the United States that have arguably more capacity, there's sort of an interesting dynamic there. And then the last thing that I'll mention is political polarization. What does political polarization mean? Let's ask the political science students and international relations. What does that mean? What does polarization mean? Someone must know. Oh, come on. Someone in the back row. What does political polarization mean? Anybody? Yes. Yes.
So basically what I understand is political polarization is basically use of like speeches and everything to brainwash the public by politicians or anything, or to foster an ideology basically aimed in brainwashing or creating extremist views.
Okay, interesting. Anybody else have? Yes, you. Yes, sir.
From what I understand, political polarization is basically the development of extremist ideologies on either side of the spectrum. As he said, through speeches and provocative measures. It's the development of sort of extreme viewpoints on either side and like the diminishing moderate viewpoints in the world.
Okay, excellent. You're a law student? You guys are law students? Okay, great. So absolutely right. Political polarization in the United States refers to the growing divide not only between, we have two major political parties, the political parties in the United States, help me out. What? Democrats and Republicans. But even within those parties, there are divisions, and some people think that the Democratic Party, this is actually the field I teach in, so forgive me, I'm going to go off for just a second. Some people think that the political parties have become more extreme in the United States, with the Democratic Party representing the left side of the spectrum, and the Republican Party, particularly the Trump wing of the Republican Party, becoming more right-wing. Now, is this the case in Indian domestic politics? Would you describe Indian politics as politically polarized? Yes. Who would like to take a crack at describing that for those of us who may not be expert in Indian domestic politics? Anybody? This is super extra credit. Professor Kumar is going to give super extra credit if you can describe Indian political polarization. Yes.
So the ruling party in India right now, which is the party in power, actually has in its manifesto the feeling to inculcate nationalism to such an extent that an entire country should become a Hindu country. So there's a term Hindutva in which they refer that every person who's living in India should be a Hindu. So this is a kind of ideology that they pursue, and people are surprisingly in favor of that, hence it being a ruling party. Therefore, the divide that has been created between the rightist and the leftist is getting more and more with each day, with which the ideology is being inflicted upon the minds of the people.
Okay, great. Thank you. So you're talking about the BJP. Yeah. And anybody else want to add to that? Some of my international relations students. Yes, go ahead.
So right now, in the present conditions, there is a right-leaning tendencies and the left-leaning tendencies of the government. So the present government has a right-leaning tendency, and the political parties that are not in favor. So they do not have a very extreme left-leaning tendency, but are towards the left-leaning spectrum. So we do not again. There is a certain amount of extremism, but at the same time, the conditions are more welfare-based towards the people.
Okay. So do you believe that Indian political parties are polarized or not?
They are tending towards getting polarized.
Okay, so maybe not as much as Americans. Now, one difference between the United States and India is, of course, you're in a parliamentary system, right, with multiple parties, where the United States really, although officially there can be more than two parties, really there's only two parties. In any event, let's go back to where we are. So this is the changing United States landscape. Thank you for helping educate us on the differences between the United States and India. And so what the response is in the United States to these changing conditions, the demographics, the debates about the value, the political polarization, is we are trying to adapt. There's a phrase sometimes that you hear, adapt or change, that can be talking about everything from the environment or politics as well. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so what United States college education, I'm going to call on some people in the back row, because I always like to make sure that the people in the back row are talking and engaged. So I may call on you by how you're looking right now. And so if you're looking engaged, you may escape my glance. So I'm just telling the people in the back row that you're always considered part of the discussion, okay? Not to scare you, but just to invite you in. Okay, the power of United States college education is that we believe that education is the single most important factor to change people's lives. Anybody in this room think that education is the single most important factor to change people's lives? Anybody think that something else? What might be different than education in terms of changing people's lives? Think about you, your family, your friends. What changes people's lives? Experiences? Church? Culture? What about social media? Anybody think social media changes your life? Any of you influencers? How many followers do you have? Let's see who has the most followers in the room. That's always important. Who has a lot of followers besides Professor Kumar? I know he has hundreds of thousands. You don't? You don't? Okay, well, O.P. Jindal has a lot of followers, right? Who has a lot of followers in this room? Oh, come on, don't be shy. Someone in the back row. How many followers do you have? Give me a number. Come on. Anybody have more than 10,000 followers? Raise your hand if you have more than 10,000 followers. No one? What are you doing? No. You're probably doing your studies. Anybody have 5,000 followers? Are you not allowed to do social media? Is that part of the deal at O.P. Jindal? No social media? No? All right. Well, I will tell you that.
We don't have any problem. There are some students who have got their own YouTube channel and things like that, but maybe this group, we don't have those students.
Okay, all right. No one wants to share with me how many followers you have. Come on. Does anybody have a social media platform with followers? Who has a social media platform? Come on, let's be honest. Right? Okay, all of you have one. Give me a number. 1,000? Okay.
How many have more than 1,000 followers?
All right. How many have more than 5,000 followers? Anybody? Okay. What's your media about? What do you focus on? Sorry? Lifestyle and fashion. Anybody else? Anybody else more than 5,000? All right. Well, I don't know. I think you're holding back on me, but I visited a high school recently, and what I was told is that a lot of students believe that they should not go to college because it's too much time and too much money, and instead what they should do is they should develop their social media platform, and then somehow that when they have 100,000 followers, they will have so much money that that's the way they'll make a living the rest of their lives. Anybody think that that's true? Anybody have that as their life plan? All right, well, I will tell you that there are people out there, and maybe some of you in this room, but you just don't want to share it with us right now, think that that's true. But we believe very firmly that although social media can be an important way of spreading ideas, that it really does not provide a long-term plan for our life. And so what we do very well is we provide, we think, the education that will change your life and your family's life, particularly if you come from a less wealthy family. Increased earnings, critical learning, thinking skills, collaboration, open-mindedness, and how to be citizens. There's also a lot of evidence, actually, that having an education makes you have better health incomes. Anybody interested in health in this room? Okay, well, there are a lot of benefits. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And what we do at PACE is we do provide this access to higher education. We have a lot of students, a lot of international students, and so forth and so on, some of the areas that we work on. Let's go, keep going. All right. Let's pan back from Pace University and talk about the United States landscape now. There are 4 key areas of change. So remember what I said is adapt or change, and there are a lot of changes going on right now in education that are seen not only at Pace University, but throughout the country. Those are the kinds of degrees or credentials, the formats of instruction and learning, the very idea of what a classroom is, and who the student body is. Let's go to the next slide. So what's a degree? What's a degree? You all are getting an undergrad degree in law. What's it called? A LLB in law, okay? And you're getting master's in international relations. Is that diplomacy? And that's your dean is sitting right there, right? And he wants to make sure that you know what degree you're getting, because that's really important to make sure you're on track. So one of the things that's happening in the United States is that we are not only giving degrees, but we're giving what are called certificates and credentials. And so it might be, and you may have this already. So in international relations, do you have any special badges or minors or credentials? Like what? You're nodding. What do you have? Yeah. Okay, so you have specialty fields. And what's it called typically? Is it something you can put on your CV?
So the thing is, there are different clusters, so you pick electives based on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing like how foreign universities have a major or a minor. It's just this sort of specialization. It's
Specialization.
not compulsory. You can just choose not to do it, but it's an option.
Okay, and do you all have something like that in law as well? Do you have special areas that you focus on that it might put on your CV? Yes, no? Yes? Not sure? You're just first years. Okay, well, how many years are you going to be here? Oh boy. So you've got a lot of time to figure this out, right? Okay. So in the United States, increasingly, there's a sense of trying to get a special credential in a certain area. And it might even be outside of your degree program. It might be inside of it. And it also might be many, many, many years from now, when you're not sure what you want to do and you're thinking about going back to school, you may want to what's called upskill. Anybody know what an upskilling means? Anybody heard that term before? I don't know if is that used in the Indian context, upskilling? Anybody know what upskilling means? Yes? Someone said yes. Who said yes?
Upskilling is basically you are adding on an additional skill to your own skill set or whatever you already know. It is sort of like a vocational or an apprenticeship that is actually takes a lot of less time, but it actually adds on to your skill set,
Absolutely. Okay.
which you can then put on your CV and make it slightly bit more marketable.
Thank you. Excellent answer. What can we say for certain will happen in 10 years? What can we say for certain will be different in the next 10 years? Just think about it. Yes. Exactly. Oh my God. Super extra credit. What is your name? Okay, I didn't hear your first name, but I heard Gupta, and that's a good name. What's your first name? Shreya. Shreya's absolutely right. We know that technology will be different. So how are you going to keep up with it? You guys grew up with technology and so forth, just like my kids do. But you might want to go back to school. You might want to get an online program or a short-term program to upgrade technology. You were going to say something. What else do we know will change in the next 10 years? Kind of similar. Okay. Okay, what else do we know for certain will be different 10 years from today? Sorry? Highly advanced AI. Excellent. So what might you want to do 10 years from now if you see that you have, yeah, you might want to do it. You might do it at your workplace. Some of this education might be delivered by your employer. It also might be that you take a summer program. Sometimes even employers sometimes pay for it. It might be that you do it at night or on weekends. Excellent answer. AI, technology, what else is going to be different 10 years from now? Somebody from this side of the room in the back. What else is going to be different? We know, as we sit here today, we know that 10 years from now something will be very different. I know this is probably not what you think about, but actually it's worth contemplating what's going to be different and how to think about your life and your education so that you can grab that change 10 years from now and not be overwhelmed by it. What else do we know is going to be different 10 years from now? No matter what Professor Kumar or I do and our colleagues do. Yes? Excellent. Sustainability, climate, the world is going to be very, very different. And that may not be in positive ways, but it's going to be different. Again, so all of these things are things to think about, not only in your current studies, but as you move through your life and think about areas that you need to do. And this will be something many of you in this room are going to have children at some point, and you're going to want to talk to those children and your siblings as well. Okay, next slide, please. Formats for instruction. What has changed dramatically just in your lifetime, in the past few years? Yes?
2 years of our life was spent at home because of COVID, and everything was online, from education to shopping. So I think that's a big difference.
Right. And what, excellent, that describes exactly what has happened. And what change has that brought?
I think we've become more phone-oriented in the past few years. Like,
Okay.
even while reading a book, there are people who prefer Kindle over a paper book. So I think that has changed a lot.
Yes, excellent. What else? What else? Yes? Right. So we use technology to create connection. And we were talking earlier about ways that we could have classes that could connect OP Jindal students and PACE students using technology. Now, there's the time difference thing, which is not trivial, but there are ways to overcome that. So the formats for instruction.
Most of our students don't sleep at night.
Really? How many of you are awake at, let's see, what time would be a typical class for us? Let's call it 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. 10 a.m.
The day starts for some of them.
So wait a second. 10 a.m. our time, it's, help me out on the math. No, 9.5 hours. 9.5 hours. So what's the difference?
10 a.m. our time?
10 a.m. our time is
7:30.
7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy, right? Okay. How many of you are awake at midnight? Okay, all right. So everything's open. Everything. 2? How many of you are awake at 2 in the morning? Okay, all right. So the hours that we can have, can have classes are between what, like 4 and 7 in the morning? Right? Okay, all right. So faculty, there's a whole range of things. What? Okay, all right. All right. Listen, the other people who are engaged in this enterprise may be less flexible on time, and that's your faculty. So we'll negotiate this, but it seems like there's just enormous opportunity here for flexibility. Formats for instruction are going to be different. They're going to be both in person and online, and what we call hybrid, which is some in person and some online. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, what is a classroom? What is a classroom? Anybody have thoughts about what a classroom is? I mean, you described essentially your classroom is your house or your room, your bedroom. And for some of us, that's a good place to be in class, and for some of us, that's not always a good place to be in class, right? You can have screaming siblings or construction outside your window or whatever. A lot of things going on. Yeah, please.
Thank you. During the work from home, like the time during the COVID was actually somewhat difficult for those people who like to engage outside. So for us, people who are like more familiar with backgrounds with outside. So classrooms in proper schools, institutions are better engaging for us rather than our homes. Because as you right now mentioned, screaming siblings or construction is a daily hassle that we have to deal with when we are in home. So therefore, we get some time out of it. So it's definitely better if it is in an institution. So it's obviously a much more interactive. And also the teacher is also much more interactive with us. She can see our expressions, or he can see our expressions and judge whether we are understanding the concept or not. And not really necessity to like constantly ask, are you guys there on the mic?
Yes. How many of you turned on your screen during the COVID period when you were home? Ooh, how many of you did not turn on your screen? Oh. As someone who taught during this period, I can tell you there's nothing harder than talking to screens with names on it. It is so demoralizing. Anyway, that's just my personal plea. Please turn on your screens. If you ever have a class with me, I'm going to beg you. I'm going to incentivize you. But the whole question of what a classroom is has really changed. One fun example that came out of COVID is we have a very good dance program. And dance was very scary to do during COVID because the breathing, the touching was really not appropriate. And so what we did was we used cameras in very exciting ways to create the feeling of being together even though we weren't. And we can assume that technology is going to enable us to do even more exciting things. But the fundamental question is it a safe place? Is it a quiet place? Is it a place where you can understand each other? And I think the other thing that is happening on a positive way is that there are ways to have classrooms that aren't in classrooms like this. We can have classrooms outside. We can have classrooms in your library, right? The library used to be a place with primarily books. What are libraries now, to a large extent? What do you do in the library? How many of you go to the library on a regular basis? Okay. Some of you are honest and not raising your hands, and that's cool. Okay. But those of you who do go to the library, what do you do in the library? Checking out a book is probably not the most important thing to you in the library, right? How many of you actually check out books these days? Ooh, ooh, okay. How many of you do group work in the library? How many of you have meetings in the library? You guys don't, international relations does not seem to go to the library, Dean. I don't know. Do you guys go to the library or no? Yeah? Well, what do you do in the library? Do you just eat snacks and do Instagram and chat? I mean, what do you do in the library then? What? Well, you do? Oh, you do. Old-fashioned. Okay. I appreciate that. All right. But libraries are very different places as well. The bottom line is classrooms can be a lot of different places. And for better, for worse, COVID has enabled us to think about classrooms in different ways, sometimes in our own homes, sometimes outside and so forth. Let's go. Who are our students? You are our students. Let's talk about students. Is there another slide, Debbie, or is that it? Oh, no. Let's go back. Who are our students? So I'm guessing almost everyone in this room is between 17 and 23. Does that sound right? Yeah, you don't have to give me your age. But what's happening in the United States, and I'd be curious if this is happening in India, is that there are a lot of students who are considerably older who are going back to college. Anybody know anyone who started college at, say, age 25? Anybody know anybody like that? Yeah? What can you tell me what motivated that person? Okay. Had this person been working for a while? Yeah. Anybody else know somebody? Anybody have a parent or an uncle or an aunt go back to college? Yes? And what did he go back to study? Business. Okay. Had he been working for a long time? Okay. Great. Anybody else have an example of somebody who went to college sort of a little later than your age group? Yes?
My mom went to college for a BA degree because she was going to become a teacher.
After she had had children?
Yep.
Okay, so this is also, thank you, you are also representative of the trend that there are particularly women, but not only women, who go back to college after doing family, child rearing and so forth. And then there are people who, for the reasons we talked about, upskilling, and thank you for that wonderful definition of upskilling, there are people who maybe did things that have become jobs that have become obsolete. What does obsolete mean? Outdated, doesn't exist anymore. What's a job that's going to become obsolete in the next 10 years? Anybody want to predict? What's a job that's going to become obsolete? In India. Let's focus on India for a second. Yeah. Okay, so you think AI may help. Okay, radiology. What else? What? I did. Content writers. Oh, with AI. Interesting, scary, maybe. Yes? Call centers. What do you, they're going to be what? AI?
Already there are AI chatbots, so therefore I feel like at few years from now, not even too long, like 3-4 years from now, I think so call centers will only keep very few humans who are required for few human interactions, which will be special cases. Other than that, I think so they will just transform everything to AI.
Okay, great. Yes? Can we throw the mic? please.
Mails.
Oh, you think the postal service?
Yeah.
How many of you mail letters these days? Just quick show of hands. Some of you. Some of you. People of my generation think thank you notes that are handwritten are very, very sweet. What do you write? Anybody write thank you notes anytime? Yeah. How do you do? How do you do your thank you letters? Email? No. You WhatsApp a thank you. Okay. All right. And does the person WhatsApp you back saying you're welcome? Or okay. All right. So it gets there. You think it gets there? Okay. So the Postal Service is imperiled, Professor Kumar. Yeah, that's probably true in the United States as well. What other jobs might be obsolete? Anybody have anybody who drives a, oh yes, please. Oh, okay, because you think AI is going to take that over? Yeah, what other jobs?
I think one of the professions that is outdated right now too is travel agents. Like in the older times, like people used to go to travel agents to book tickets and everything.
Yeah.
But nowadays, due to internet and everything, that profession is literally dead, I guess.
Anybody have a family member who's a travel agent? No? No? Does anybody in this room or their family use a travel agent anymore? No? No? You do? You do? Yeah? Are they still working as a travel agent? They do use it. Okay, okay. What other jobs? Any, yes? Okay, any examples that you can think of? You think they're going to do away with that because they're just going to have such confidence that they're... Yeah. Okay, okay, this is great. Yes? Excellent, excellent. You're a first year? Yes, so there is a lot of talk. I'm a lawyer by training as well, and there's a lot of talk that discovery. There's actually a lot of talk, and this is a little scary. There's a lot of talk that much of law could become redundant or taken over. What's the comeback when you hear things like that? Yes?
Law is a field which is very subjective, and almost all the time it stays in the gray area. Something that requires so much of thought and resonation as to when you're applying it. So it cannot be done by something that is machine based and needs a human perspective to it, because law and morality are also at times very much linked.
Okay, so you have a great career as either a mediator or a judge because you sound like you want to hear different points of view. And it is hard for a machine to necessarily make the determination. That might be an argument. So those of you who are studying law, don't give up. You just may be entering a profession that is changing. Any other jobs that you think might become obsolete in the next 10 years? Yes, sir. Oh, no. Tell us about that. Why do you think that?
If you're a good one, the country will kill you off, and if you're a bad one, the market will kill you off. So.
Oh boy. All right. I don't know if our dean is our dean of journalism in the room today? Where's the dean? The dean. Okay. I want the dean to hear that. Okay. So it's more because of the politics rather than the nature of the job.
It's actually both, because nowadays newsrooms are not making as much money as they used to, and nowadays there is a lot of other unconventional ways of delivery of information. So traditional news media is dying. Print media is practically dead. They have very less financing, and when they try to get other finances, they lose their credibility because financing comes at the price of advertisement, and that loses credibility. So there's a paradox, and when they try to be independent and produce good content, then they fall into political whirlwinds, and it's just not a profitable enterprise because it was never meant to be. It was supposed to be an inquiry of truth, and that is why it's no longer a prospective profession, but it still is a respectable one.
Okay, well, thank you. That's very thoughtful. Any other jobs anybody want to throw out? Yes?
In the contemporary world, in the contemporary modern warfare, so we would say that, security as in army and navy personnels, they may replace, as in the AI technology, AI bots, AI robots may replace them, as in we see drones today, we see loitering munitions, we see, some tech weapons that may replace those soldiers. So one of those, maybe down 10 years down the line.
So you're suggesting the jobs that require physical presence may become replaced by jobs that require knowledge of computers or digital images or something like that. All this is actually very interesting to me as I think about, we go back to the earlier discussion about the demographics and the different demographics in India. And you all, this was really not where my topic was going to go, and Professor Kumar will probably be annoyed with me, but I was going to say that as future leaders of India, you're going to need to think about how these changes will create even more pressure in an economy where there are a lot of young people who need to be employed. And so is the role there to educate more people, or is it to create more jobs in different fields that may not require education because you have so many people here? And of course, that's why OP Jindal is such an important institution, because OP Jindal is thinking about these questions and trying to create new opportunities. And I know you're very, very fortunate to be here. So anybody last questions about jobs? I've never done this lecture before, and you all have given me so much to think about, and I'm really very grateful to you. Anybody else want to offer up any jobs? Anybody have family members who drive cars or trucks for a living? One of the speculations, at least that I've heard, is that those jobs are going to be replaced by self-driving things. So we'll see about that. But in the United States anyway, there are going to be fewer traditional college-age students, but there are going to be a lot of people who are living longer and will want to continue work, so they will go back to college. And so education is very much a part of what we tried to do today, is talk about how education is not just part of these 4 years of your life, or how many ever years, 5 years, but it's part of an economy, and it's part of a changing world that's framed by technology and climate crisis and a lot of other things. So, last slide. Do we have time for questions, or have I gone way past my time? We have a Q&A time slot. Okay, good. So, I've asked you a lot of questions. I'd be happy to have your questions, and maybe we can share it with some of the panelists. And if you don't ask questions, then I will ask you questions. So it's probably a good strategy for you to ask questions. Otherwise, we're going to ask you more questions. But I want to say in closing, you all have been a wonderful audience. Thank you for going with me on this journey. And thank you for being part of the higher education experiment that is changing both in India and the United States. It's a very exciting time. I know it's not always been an easy time, and I hear the comments about the 2 years or 3 years of COVID, but I'm really proud that all of you have made it through and are at this important moment at this important institution. So congratulations, and thank you all very much. All right, any questions? Yes, go ahead. Can we do it the mic? Oh, I will sit down. Oh, yes, great. Okay.
And then we will get to the question. Thank you so much, Marvin. And I'm going to request his colleagues to say a few words, just short 1 to 2 minutes, and then we will throw it open.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Hill. I'm the Dean of the Seidenberg School of Computer Science and Information Systems at Pace University. And you made me cry when you said that all the programming jobs would go away with AI. So I had to borrow my new beautiful scarf here. But I think actually you're going to find that while some low-level programming jobs are made redundant, it's going to create an explosion of new jobs.
Hi, I'm Sonia Sachde, chair of the psychology department, and I certainly hope you continue needing psychologists for a long time.
Hi, I'm Debbie Zager. I'm the Executive Director of Development Operations and Annual Giving.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Meltiades. I'm the Assistant Dean of the Center for Global Business Programs in New York City at Pace University and the Lubin School of Business. A totally fascinating conversation. Disruption hit my family with the New York City taxi and the yellow taxi that President Krislov was talking about when Uber came. And my dad actually lost $1 million, if you could believe it, on that disruption, right? But he was retired, so that's okay. But this is a fascinating conversation, and it's very hard to predict where everything will go. But I do believe that you will be changing with the times, and so it won't be so sudden or drastic or scary in any way, just like we have all that change in our hands and we're not scared of our cell phone, right? So I think it'll be just fine, and there'll be lots of jobs for everyone.
I'm P.V. Vishwanath. I'm a professor of finance at the Lubin School of Business at Pace University. And I want to say that one of the most exciting things that have been happening in India in the last 20 years, I don't think I heard it tonight, is the explosion of civil society. And I think that's very, very important. And I'd like to suggest that in whatever field you are, you think about how you impact society. And I think in a certain sense, it's becoming more and more important in today's India. The India of the past was in general poor, and most people were poor. Now there are lots of well-to-do people. There's more of the middle class, but there are also a lot of people at the bottom. And I think that's really not sustainable if you want an India to progress and be innovative and be up there with the rest of the world. So I'm looking forward to being part of that India as well.
All right, we have 5 to 7 minutes for Q&A. So
We'll open the floor for some questions. You can.
just raise your voice and.
So I have a question in regards to higher education and job market. So a lot of people are scared that there'll become job saturation, where a lot of these jobs, which are relatively the same, especially in things like IT or CS jobs, for example, will become the same. So do you think from a higher education perspective, there'll be more specialization? A lot of people will seek specialization, and if for us, freshers, is that a good idea to become very specialized in a field?
Take 2 more questions. All right. Okay.
Professors, like my question is, the concept of education or the definition of education has been distorted in the last few years. Like people often confuse education and literacy. People just like run after degrees and everything. So how do you all think like education institutions can help to like, redefine this definition?
Fascinating question. Yeah. All right, let's have one more. Yeah, please.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask was, what is it in the field of cybersecurity that the industry right now demands? And from an international relations perspective, how what might be the jobs, or what is the niche that would be demanded, and what would Pace University be offering in terms of that?
I think I'm going to turn a number of those 1 and 3 over to you,
1 and 3.
Yes.
Yes, all fabulous questions.
Do you need a mic?
I'll speak up until and here is the mic. Cybersecurity is a challenging field in the sense that the on-ramp to careers, whether it's in India, the US, any place in the world, is very, very long. If you're a government practitioner, you need security clearances. If you are an industry person, you're often working in the financial sector, which also requires certain security clearances. Cybersecurity is where the action is in terms of international crime. Something like 48% of Interpol's caseload now is trying to track down international cybercrime and attacks by nation states. really, really interesting work. You don't have to be an IT guru. You have to be a deeply analytic person. And my undergraduate degree is international affairs. That framework is extraordinarily useful for looking at the interactions between nation states, cybercrime. And if you pair that with the technological underpinnings, you will have a long and very rich career. And the first question was also, I think, really, really important. You are here for lifelong learning. My competitive advantage at a school of engineering is that my students get a traditional arts and sciences degree, right? They are reading literature, they are studying history, international affairs, communications, so they are broadly educated, and that's what you're getting here. I don't think there's a better institution in the world for getting that baseline education and fundamentally learning how to learn. When you go out into the career world, the skills that you're learning now are going to become passé. So you are constantly going to have to refresh, retrain, and know how to teach yourself the core skills that you need to do your tasks of the moment.
Sonia, would you like to jump in on any of the particular thinking number 2 about education and literacy?
I think we are at a unique point right now because post-COVID, the world of education has changed. And to my mind, literacy is about comprehending that change and moving further from it. In other words, the challenges in the world of education is going to force us to think in terms of literacy, think in terms of what we are doing, why we are doing it, and how we are doing it. So I really do see it as an opportunity because, for example, there are various accreditation agencies, there are various other educational establishments that have really changed and begun questioning their accreditation criteria. We are moving towards a more competency-based education, which would then lead to better literacy because it incorporates experiential learning. It incorporates the process of learning about learning into it, and it demands a more thoughtful method of assessment because it's based on competency. So it's forcing us to ask ourselves, what is it that we are doing? How do we break it down? And how do we assume that students have learned it rather than simply blanketly grading? So I really see it as an opportunity to move towards literacy in the real sense of the word rather than education. But I think it's a very well taken point that having a degree doesn't assume literacy at all. Perhaps the most literate human beings I have met have been people with no degrees or the bare minimum degrees possible. So I think it's a very thoughtful question. Thank you.
Go first. Okay. I think questions 1 and 2 are actually related. And question 1 was focusing on specialization. And yes, it is true that many of the jobs today are getting more and more specialized, and therefore you need specialized education as well. But at the same time, actually, I would even put it more more importance. I think that you should avoid extreme specialization, or at least together with specialization, you need to know a lot about different areas, because one of the things that I think it's going to be difficult for ChatGPT and all these other AI tools to do is to take knowledge and ideas and thoughts from different parts of the human experience and connect them together. And that's what being creative is, and I think, and being flexible. And the questions of the future are going to require those kinds of answers. So, if you're a science student, it's great, but take courses in the social sciences, read literature, ancient literature, modern literature, and if you're in the humanities, then take courses in tech areas, science, know what makes your body tick, what happens in the astrosphere, all of those things. So that's what I would say.
I completely agree with that. And I think, you need to be broad just for your own humanity, not just for an outcome, right? I mean, you're not going to school just to get an outcome. You're going to school to be a well-rounded human being for society, right? So to broaden it out too. So it's not just, this isn't a vocational school where they're teaching you to do one thing and you're just going to do that and it's going to become obsolete. And then you need to kind of hone in and specialize in something, which will change over time as well, and you have to keep up with it, as we were saying, because you will add value. But I can tell you that I did a variety of things, had a variety of degrees, and I use something from each thing that I did in my current position. So that's going to be really, really important. If you look at people like Steve Jobs, I mean, yes, he was very specialized in what he did, but it was the intersection of that and design and art, really, and the packaging of his products is what's sold in the end, because we can't really see what's inside, right? We see the Apple logo right there on that laptop over there, and we think, ooh, that's trendy and nice, let me buy it, which is almost a fashion statement, right? So if he was just a tech guy and didn't care about the fashion part, it wouldn't have sold. So you have to really be broad, and you don't know where the inspirations are going to come from, but you're going to have those aha moments later and say, oh, I got that from there, and I had no idea that this was all connected. Life is interesting, and you don't know when you're going to use what you're going to use, but I guarantee you will use things that you think are relevant later. So be broad at first, then hone in, and I think you can't go wrong.
Thank you so much. I would sincerely like to thank Professor Krislov and the entire delegation of Pace University for such an engaging session. I think it was truly interesting, and it gave all of us something to think about. I would now like to request Professor Dr. Mohan Kumar, Dean and Director, Jindal Global Center for G20 Studies, to give us some concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegation from Pace University, founding Vice Chancellor, my colleagues on the dais, and of course, dear students. I think it's very hard to conclude this absolutely useful and instructive session. What I do want to say, though, is that I think if you talk of education in India and education abroad, there are some fundamental differences. As pointed out by some students, people don't question the value of education in India. We are not there yet. They all think that some kind of education is absolutely a must. But I think in the West, because of the cost of education, the student debt issue, people have started saying, why do I need an MBA for $250,000? Why do I need to go to a school? And it's also true that 20 years ago, you could do a BA from a good university in theater and arts and still get a job for $60,000 a year. And that's not happening in the West anymore. So that's, I think, a big change. I think for me, the challenge in India, though, is that because given the level of our development and where we are at this point, I would say there is a correlation that is sought to be established by the parents and others on education and jobs. So that is, so I like your motto. Pace equals jobs. I saw your slide, and that I think is a good line to follow. But beyond that, I think the things that in India are relevant are we are trying to make it interdisciplinary. So we want engineers who would have done some philosophy, some psychology. So even in the MIT, Caltech institutions in India, which is the Indian Institution of Technology or the Indian Institute of Technology, we have now introduced philosophy, psychology, literature, etc. So I like what the Dean of the Business School, my colleague said from Pace University, of course, who said that I think you have to be both broad and deep, and that's not easy. My last point is education should leave you with skills which are useful in the long term. So information, knowledge is not useful, wisdom is. So critical thinking skills will keep you going. And I think the fact that Indian University is constantly telling universities that, Indian University, I'm saying Indian industry is telling universities constantly that we are having to spend millions of rupees in training your graduates is something that I think universities should take very seriously. So once again, thank you very much. And I think all of you should take a good look at Pace University and what it offers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohan. To conclude this particular session, I would like to invite Dr. Akhil Bharadwaj for vote of thanks, Director of Office International Affairs and Global Initiatives.
Thank you, Shraddha. At the outset, I must extend our most sincere gratitude to President Krislov for visiting us today and also sharing deep insights to our wonderful students. Our partnership with PACE has been enduring, and it has grown leaps and bounds over the last few years. We have started a new chapter in our partnership. We have now signed an agreement for a summer school at PACE University for all Jindal students that will be up for offering in the upcoming fall in July. In addition to that, there will be an opportunity for all Jindal students to spend a semester at PACE at Lubin School of Business from all Jindal schools. So, and also the unwavering support of our Vice Chancellor towards our partnership right from the start. Both the leadership at PACE and Jindal has been the flag bearers of this partnership, and it is their continuous guidance that we have now expanded it to other schools of JGU apart from law and business. So thank you, everyone. It is indeed a wonderful day for us, a very historic one, that we have signed these two agreements, which will be up for our students for grabs in the upcoming summers. And we look forward to continuing growing our partnership in the near future as well. Thank you, everyone.